Oh, hey. Sorry, I didn't notice you walk in. You caught me reading some of my fine literature. Nisekoi, to be exact, Volume 4. Nisekoi may not even be my favorite manga, and Volume 4 may not even be my favorite volume of the manga of Nisekoi. But it will always hold a special place in my heart. See, Volume 4 is where we get the introduction of my favorite character in Nisekoi, probably my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters in all of fiction, and someone who I hold dear, very close to my heart. Her name is Marika Tachibana. When the show was first airing and the manga was still in production and was still popular, especially among internet, there were two main camps. There was the Shitoge clan and there was the Kosaki clan. Those were the two main heroines in the harem manga for Nisekoi. However, me and a small select few other people who have much higher esteemed taste decided that this girl right here would be the one that we would root for no matter what. In fact, while you're here, why don't we start some of my own literature, but always keep my own fine literature on me in case the occasion ever comes. So, this is going to be a love letter of sorts to Marika Tachibana. What do people look for in a good waifu? Is it appearance, personality, powers, intelligence, or perhaps the way a character evolves throughout a story? In the manga Nisekoi by Naoshi Komi, I would argue that he created what would reasonably be called the perfect waifu, based on the criteria listed above. Her name, Marika Tachibana. Since Nisekoi is in fact a harem manga, it naturally relies on archetypal characters. For example, Shitoge Kirisaki, the violent gorilla-like tsundere with a notable gap moe; Kosaki Onodera, the timid, shy, good-natured girl who excels at baking and is an absolute doormat. Pardon my language. And Seishiro Tsugumi, the tomboy who can barely even comprehend the concept of romance. Like many characters in typical harem series, they tend to bottle up their emotions and struggle to confess their love for the main character, letting key moments in their life slip by while continuing a will they, won't they narrative to keep the drama and suspense going. Marika, however, does not partake in such feeble actions. She does the complete opposite. She proudly and openly declares her love for the protagonist, Raku Ichijo, and makes it known to everyone that she considers herself to be the best possible candidate to be his fiancé. There is no hesitation in her actions, no subtlety in her words. She only knows absolute conviction and determination. When Marika was a young girl, she was afflicted with a hereditary illness, that could have been fatal without treatment. Because of this condition, she spent much of her childhood bedridden and isolated, bored and alone, with little to no contact with the outside world. Since she was little, Marika was kept in a metaphorical prison, where she was hidden away and unable to truly live. One day, while traveling with her mother on a business trip, and gazing out the window of the room she was confined in, she saw a small boy climbing a tree nearby. They quickly became friends. The boy would bring her small treasures from his outdoor adventures, sharing stories of adventure of the outside world, the world she could not experience herself. It wasn't long before Marika fell deeply in love with him, because he represented everything she longed for: freedom. Before they parted ways at the end of the mother's business trip, they took a photograph together to commemorate their bond and made a promise. When they meet again in the future, they would get married. From that moment on, Marika made it her life's goal to become the ideal woman for him. Originally from rural Japan, she has a noticeable country accent, which she worked tirelessly to soften through speech lessons. She took cooking classes so she could prepare any food Raku might enjoy in the future. She grew out her hair because in one conversation, Raku mentioned he preferred girls with long hair. Every decision she made was guided by devotion because she believed Raku was the key to her happiness in life and one-way ticket to truly living free. 10 years later, Marika transfers into the same school as the rest of the cast, boldly announced that she is Raku's fiancée. What she does not expect, however, is that Raku is currently in a fake relationship with the gorilla girl, which understandably complicates matters and completely throws a wrench into her plans. Throughout much of the story, Marika attempts to insert herself into Raku's love life, even if it means challenging or disrupting his fake relationship. However, Marika constantly confessing to Raku simply to be an annoying thorn in his side is not the case. Her persistence is driven by something far more serious than blind devotion. When she transferred schools, she made a deal with her overly protective, deeply traditional and oriental mother. If Marika could not persuade Raku to formally ask for her hand in marriage before her illness worsened, much like what happened to her mother when she was younger, Marika would be forced into a prearranged marriage, handpicked by her mother, that obviously Marika strongly opposed of. This ultimatum dramatically raises the stakes of Marika's pursuit of love. Even while suffering from violent coughing fits, collapsing from exhaustion, and enduring long stretches without proper medication, Marika continued fighting against the future that was being decided for her. Again, doing everything in her power and even sacrificing her own life to finally truly live and chase her goals in life. When she became too weak to continue on, Marika was taken back into her mother's custody and was given proper medication. However, since Marika could not keep up her part of the deal with her mother, Marika was essentially held captive in her own home as her arranged marriage was prepared. Even though all hope did seem lost, Marika repeatedly attempted to escape what was essentially an oriental equivalent of a medieval castle, with confusing layouts, dungeons, and highly trained guards, just to name a few obstacles, all in the name of choosing her own path and destiny. Her determination was not shallow infatuation. It was a battle for autonomy and freedom. Marika was willing to sacrifice her health, her comfort, and potentially even her life for the chance to love and live freely. That level of conviction surpasses the dedication showed by anyone else in this series and most characters in all of harem manga. Her greatest growth as a character occurs near the end of the series. After being rejected for the final time by Raku, and Raku confesses his love for the gorilla girl, Marika finally accepts defeat. However, in a remarkable act of maturity, selflessness, she is the one who ultimately helps bring everyone together. She gathers the other girls and ensures that they express their true feelings honestly, and pushes events forward so that Raku can finally propose to the gorilla. Years later, we see Marika again. This time, she's quite different. Now with short hair, sitting calmly looking forward to her next date with a potential suitor after receiving an invitation to the wedding for Raku and the gorilla. She no longer strives to be someone else's ideal woman. Instead, she chooses to become the ideal version of herself. During the anniversary re-release of Nisekoi, which extends the timeline with an additional 10-year time skip beyond the original ending, one particularly fascinating detail is revealed. While the rest of the main cast is shown moving on and forward with their lives, getting married, having kids, marriages established, and futures settled, Marika stands apart. She is the only member of the original harem whose romantic future remains officially unconfirmed. A full decade later within the story's universe, she is still not depicted in a lasting relationship. In the original conclusion of the manga, there had been a playful meta hint suggesting that a fellow Marika appreciator from the 3D world, Wai-san from China, was one of the potential suitors that had a chance of taking Marika's hand in marriage. Yet, despite that tongue-in-cheek implication, the anniversary material leaves her as a bachelorette still. 10 in-universe pass, still no confirmed partner. From a purely literary standpoint, one might argue this preserves her independence and reinforces her arc of self-actualization. From a far more dramatic and entirely self-indulgent standpoint, however, I choose to interpret it differently. Clearly, destiny has intervened. Clearly, the narrative is preserving her for someone unparalleled devotion. And if devotion requires swimming across the Pacific Ocean itself to deliver a heartfelt confession, then so be it. If even a decade is not enough for any suitor, 2D or 3D, to claim her heart, then perhaps it is an act of God that she remains single. And it is my mission to devote my life to my waifu, Marika Tachibana. As for her appearance and personality, Marika possesses a nice, slender frame, fair skin, striking orange hair, that immediately captures attention from those around her. Her silhouette alone makes her instantly recognizable, with the long strands of hair coming out over her shoulders. It is peak character design. Her smug expressions are legendary and have a very condescending smirk. She constantly teases other characters, radiating confidence and playful mischief. Yet when she becomes embarrassed or flustered, her polished pure maiden persona slips away, revealing her loud and expressive country roots. Those moments of Gat Moe, where Marika's facade is broken, make her feel incredibly human and endearing. Canonically, she is the least academically gifted member of the entire cast. Frequently scoring poorly on exams, she forgets tasks at her part-time job and struggles with everyday responsibilities. And as shitty Chinese cartoon logic often dictates, the more airheaded and dumb a character is, the cuter they are. Despite her frail health, Marika has been shown to be fiercely determined multiple times to get physical. Primary example is when Marika worked up the courage to confront not only an Italian mob, but also a Yakuza gang at a family diner, because they were disturbing customers by fighting each other. In fact, Marika went even as far as to physically throw everyone out of the restaurant so that she could continue to work at her job, so she could start saving money for a future with Raku. Her body may be weak, but her willpower surely is not. There are also many smaller details that make her especially lovable. So this section will be a compilation of traits that Marika has that I find quite endearing. For starters, Marika owns a pet bird, specifically a scarlet macaw. While birds happen to be some of my favorite animals, I am particularly fond of all sorts of parrots. And outside of her pet bird, ironically, she's really bad with other animals. She's scared of basically everything else as they constantly try to attack her because they view her as weak. Despite her lack of intelligence, Marika loves to play the role of a trickster mastermind. Always tries to set up schemes and scenarios to get Raku to confess to her. Even though she will fully immerse herself into the role, due to her not being the sharpest tool in the shed, Marika's plans always have something to go wrong with them. And she gets embarrassed about it, looks absolutely adorable in the process. She's also the only character in the manga to break the fourth wall, directly addressing the reader and clarifying a minor detail about returning character appearance after they have been gone from the story for a long time after their one and only other appearance. In a series known for its iconic reaction faces, she consistently delivers some of the best expressions in the entire manga. Some of my favorites include the scene where Marika poorly tries to fake being sad when the gorilla girl has to go away on a flight, Marika receiving a phone call from her mother and looking back in disgust, and Marika telling her teacher that she should give up trying to sing because she just sucks. All in all, there are countless reasons why I adore Marika Tachibana. Her determination is unmatched, her selflessness is profound, her loyalty is unwavering, her appearance is striking and warm, with her long ginger hair and cozy color palette setting her apart visually from the rest of the cast. And most importantly, her personality is uniquely vibrant. She's energetic, bold, and dramatic and endlessly entertaining. What would you do for the person you loved? Would you change the way you look, speak, or act? Would you reshape yourself entirely for even the smallest chance of being loved in return? Most people would not. That unwavering commitment to her dreams, flawed, dramatic, is why I adore Marika Tachibana so much. There are many things that Marika has said throughout the series, but I think the line that perfectly encapsulates her is this: love is something you must see through the end. So long as you have love, there is nothing you can't overcome. So, now that we've finished with that, I hope you enjoyed my small excerpt on why I believe Marika is not only the best girl, but a perfect waifu. And if you were to look at the time, oh, it's March 3rd. It means it's Marika's birthday. So I'll leave you all with something very important to remember. My sweet honey Marika, I love you.
Welcome to the end of the video. It's Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, this is a, different form of content. As if you're gonna say, oh, there's nothing much what's related about this video, well, maybe if you would go over and stop by Friend of the Channel Base Damage, you'd check out their super late Valentine's Day waifu Schwartz tournament, where I made a really good showing with Marika waifu in the great year of our Lord 2026. Again, I would like to get back on the content train a little bit. I've just been super busy with work, school, and I joined a band recently. So a lot of that has been taking up a lot of time, and I'm starting to finally settle down and get back into the content mind. So hopefully I will see y'all later.